Welcome back to FM Story. In the previous episode, August, not too bad. September, absolutely abysmal and no victories of any sort. And we open October with a game against Real Madrid. What could possibly go wrong? Before we do get started, if you do enjoy the video, please like, comment, subscribe. Without further ado, let's get going. Going into the game against Real Madrid, we're not going to change anything too drastically because we need to be as kind of on it as we can do. If we change the formation or change the style of play, they're not going to be used to it and it's only going to cause more problems. Previously against Real Madrid, we've played them 10 times in this save and we've won 2. One of which actually was the last game that we played them in February. We nicked a 2-1 win at the Bernabeu, but we've conceded a lot of goals. I mean, we conceded 5 in the Supercopa final. We conceded 9 at the beginning of a couple of seasons ago. So we really need to try and keep it tight, take our chances. I mean, that last game in the Champions League against Slavia Prague, we probably should have had 4 or 5 before half time, and we ended up drawing the game 3-3. So we need to take the chances, keep it tight, and hope that they have an off day, I think. So as far as the team selection is concerned, it's a similar sort of back end of the pitch. We've kind of swapped the attacking players around in the roles. So Inaki Williams has gone back to the right hand side, and Nico Williams is going to come in from the left hand side, and Griezmann through the middle with Muniain in behind. Obviously, we're playing against a pretty decent team. I mean, they spent an awful lot of money on Max Aarons at right back, but you've got Militao, Zabani, Alaba, Tchouaméni, Valverde. The list just goes on and on. If you look at the bench as well, like Wrench, Badiashile, Gabriel Barbosa, Asensio. It's a very difficult team to play against. Obviously, the money they've got, they're going to build the biggest squad. Obviously, they don't have anywhere near the same kind of transfer restrictions as us. But hopefully, we can keep it tight and nick something here. What we need to do is not give away an early goal, because that game we lost 9-1. We conceded early from a corner. Is he even what for? Brilliant start. Just exactly what we needed, given how we've performed in the league so far. I mean, I know they've had a penalty, but the fact that they got 1.42 XG after less than 5 minutes. This is going to be a long. We genuinely have a pretty small squad as well, like height-wise. So given that they have dominated us in the past in set pieces, it's always going to be a bit of a struggle. Right, I'm just waiting for us to pass the ball to one of their players or to stand on it and let them nick it off us and break. Because this highlight doesn't seem to be going anywhere if that's not exactly, that's what was always going to happen. We weren't going anywhere with it. Oh, that's offside. It's a lovely finish, but he's offside. It's closer than I thought it was. Right, Odriozola. No. I mean, surely that's not a penalty. But if it is a penalty, he could be off, which could be a... Yeah, didn't think it was a penalty. The game's kind of quieting down a bit. Can we get the ball across? mean, Griezmann hasn't done much, but he has popped up with some vital goals and assists already. For 12 million, I know he's getting on a bit, but if you can provide just a bit more of a focal point for us than what we had last season, then things might be looking good. I mean, it was a decent finish for the disallowed goal as well, but now they're going to go up the other end and go back in front. Why did my keeper step out and take a step away from the near post and leave that open? What was he doing? All in all, I mean, since they scored the penalty, it's been fairly even in terms of XG. They'd had a couple of chances before the penalty from that corner, but it's not been too bad. We just need to not be stupid in the second half, which is a big ask for some of these players. We're struggling a bit with the wide players in terms of both Williamses haven't really performed yet, but hopefully, we can get Nico Williams through with a run at some point. See if swapping Nico Williams to the right makes a difference, although he doesn't look like he's going to last much longer either. So we might need to bring Daniel Rodriguez on there. Right. This is where they overpower some midfield and get a late winner. Oh. Right, control it. What a ball. Oh! That's quite a few of them he's missed already this season. Straight through, one-on-one with the keeper and puts it wide. It's at least 2 or 3. And for us only being in the beginning of October, it's starting to be a bit of a worry. Thank God for that. Right. Jesus. I mean, that had been a pretty decent performance up until this point. And there we go. I mean, taking Sunset off was probably the mistake there because it dropped into that kind of area in the midfield. But he was knackered. And let's be honest, right? I mean, they've had 20 shots, 12 on target, a 3.8 XG. I mean, I would be. We played well, but probably didn't deserve anything out of that. The question is, if we play like that against teams that aren't Real Madrid, I mean, we drew with Barcelona. We might keep this going and see whether it is just that we played Real Madrid, or whether we do need to make some drastic changes. It's about a month from the game against Real Madrid, and it's been an eventful month, and a month that's seen quite a lot of goals scored. So immediately following the game against Real Madrid, we went to Betis in the league and just couldn't convert any chances. We were behind early on as well. We got back on level terms just before the hour, but we had 15 shots, only 6 of them on target. We controlled the ball. We just didn't really create the chances that we needed to get the victory. We then followed that up with a game in the Champions League against Red Bull Salzburg. Now, this was an eventful game. This summed up the whole month. there was 4 goals in after the 90 minutes were up. We were 3-0 up, and almost threw it away. They put it back to 3-2. Then Nico Williams got his 4th to put us 4-3 up. They went straight up the other end, basically a long hoof from the kickoff, right between the centre halves, and Kamari poked it past the keeper. Then we got a corner, and Ochoa got his first goal for the club, heading home at the near post. And then in the 97th minute with 5 minutes added on, supposedly, they got a penalty which Fernando dispatched to leave the final score 5-4. We then went off the back of that game into a game away against Osasuna, who were local rivals, only just been promoted back to the top league, and we were atrocious. We were not on the game at all. We didn't create anything. We had one player that even played half decent. Then we went to Granada in the league. Not great in the first half, helped by them going out of 10 men just before half time. But in the end, it turned into a pretty comfortable 3-0 victory. A couple of goals from corners in that game. And then we followed it up again with our most recent game, a home game against Levante, which we won 6-2. There was a bit of panic when they pulled it back to 2-1, just because we've conceded lots of goals. If you look at the number of games we've drawn, sort of the Barcelona game 2-2, Real Sociedad 3-3, Slavia Prague 3-3. We've kind of given leads away in most of those games, but in the end we ran out comfortable victors there. And then next up we've got PSG in the Champions League. So in the Champions League, with that victory against Salzburg, we're up to 13th. Now PSG are down in 26th, which is a bit of a strange thing to kind of see. We had a bit of an issue in the recording of the game against PSG. As you can see, going into the game, we only made the one change. So we brought Julian Guerrero in for Ike Munayin, who was injured. We persisted with Mascherano, despite him only being 15 on the left wing. It was always going to be tough because he's going up against Hakimi. So we were going into the game with a lot of kind of trepidation, because we've played PSG quite a few times in the Champions League, and we've normally been on the end of a bit of a hammering from them. But in terms of how the game went and the goals, we got the ball out wide. It went to Griezmann, who played a ball over the top to Nico Williams, who finished superbly. It's something we've struggled with, the one-on-ones this season. Mascherano's inexperience didn't track Hakimi back. Fullback didn't get there, and Mbappe heads home. So it's 1-1 at half-time. And then at the start of the second half, corners to the back post, and Inigo Martinez rises highest at the back to head home. And then really late on, we knew it was coming. It gets worked into the box, the ball loops up, and Rodrigo heads home. And in the end, if you look at the stats, both teams had 8 shots on target, XG of 2.33 against 2.44. Possession was pretty even as well. It's probably a fair result, especially if you look at sort of the XG match story and everything like that. It looks a fair result, but I think given how late they equalised, and given that we knew it was coming, it just felt like a kick in the gut. But at least it wasn't a defeat, and it looks like the slight tweaks to the formation that we've made are sort of paying dividends. We just might need to work on what the best personnel in certain positions are, and it might be time to give Mascherano a bit of a rest, because although he's picked up the assists and goals, it was a big game and he didn't really perform. So we might need to look at Inaki Williams, who came on for him at half time, or even Nico Serrano coming back into the team on that left hand side. So we've made it to the end of November, and things haven't really improved since the game against PSG. In fact, the game against PSG was a forerunner of basically what happened in the next 2 games. So obviously we conceded that last minute equaliser against PSG. Villarreal, we got Inaki Williams sent off after 3 minutes and went 1-0 down. Sunset pulled one back. Then in injury time, we went ahead through Sunset. And then in what can only be described as the one single worst bit of goalkeeping I've ever seen on Football Manager, we conceded another goal in injury time. So a free kick there long forward. All he has to do is pick it up. But he kicks it and then doesn't get back. It's ridiculous. Absolutely horrendous. Then Zaragoza, we were 2-0 up at half time, and as so often this season and previous seasons, we collapsed in the second half. We then went to Lyon in the Champions League and just didn't perform. Our only goal was an own goal. Wasn't exactly great. All of which led to a decision that enough was enough. We'd had such a bad run of form since the end of August that it was time to change the formation. So we went away from the 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3 with a defensive midfielder. And it didn't look great early on. I mean, we took a very early lead with an own goal and then conceded an own goal to equalise. But truth be told, the first half, Celta were the better team. But we plodded on in the second half. We switched Nico Williams and Griezmann round. So Nico Williams went through the middle and Griezmann went wide right. And that seems to have had a better impact. And we picked up a couple of goals in that second half and ended up winning 3-1. But it's beginning to look like, I mean, based on that run of form since the end of August, I'm beginning to suspect that we're not going to make it through the season. In terms of the Champions League, we're currently sat in 23rd place. And the 3 games we've got left in the Champions League, we've got a game away at Olympiacos, we've got a game at home to Monaco, and a game away at Porto, who've just beaten Liverpool at home in the Champions League in that same round of games that we got beat by Lyon. As far as the league's concerned, we're now 7 points behind Barcelona in 4th. And realistically, I think that all we can possibly hope for this season is to get into the Europa League or the Europa Conference League. I don't think there's any chance of us getting into the Champions League spots. And like I say, I suspect that unless we can change things around pretty quickly, hopefully this new formation will change things a bit. But otherwise, I suspect we're going to be ending up in this column here as being turfed out before the end of the season. And that's the end of this episode. Join us next time to see if that new formation does miraculously turn our form around and to see whether we actually make it through a full video without getting sacked. See you then.